Joining us here in Eagan, Minnesota for Vikings training camp is the Athletics' Jourdan Rodrigue. Jourdan, we are so excited to have you. You are going to also be a part of our Voyage series.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. I keep remarking on how gorgeous the building is. I have the right coffee, apparently. I brought that in today. I complimented the airport. I'm basically a Minnesota resident now. So
that is very true. Compliment our Caribou coffee. We're good to go. But you know, bringing you here, a lot of ties that you have from your journalistic background covering the Rams. You know Kevin O'Connell and a lot of people in our building really well. Why come out this year? Are you working on something special?
Yeah, a couple of things, and everyone's been so gracious to help me out with those things. I think that this is a team that's really on the forefront of a lot of ideas that are important in the NFL and football right now overall. Kevin O'Connell certainly on the offensive side, but also on the defensive side with what Brian Flores is doing with the most radical defense in the NFL right now. And it's also becoming a quarterback development factory, and that'll be really interesting to see with JJ McCarthy. And then overall, the organization is a fascinating study in the combination of team building and modern yet old school culture at the same time. It's just a fascinating place to be. When I was organizing my training camp schedule this year, I was like, I got to spend as much time as possible out there.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like you come here to be a bit of a sponge.
Yes.
When you mentioned the hot word quarterback development, and so obviously JJ McCarthy, Kevin O'Connell, they're very excited about that. JJ McCarthy wanting to be here and only here. He's made that very clear. So how have you seen that play out from your vantage point, being more of like on the national level?
It's interesting. I don't think that the outside is as patient with quarterbacks as they should be. What's kind of neat is in here in Minnesota, they are very patient with the quarterback development process. It is the perfect place for a quarterback to get not only the master's degree, but the PhD and the 500, 600 level coursework on being a quarterback and everything that it means in the NFL right now. And I think it's really interesting because there is such a focus and a care on specifically that development. It's going to be so important that JJ McCarthy has all of the right steps in place for him as he continues to grow, and that he's sort of shielded a little bit away from the national people, and he's shielded a little bit away from the expectations, because the expectation is to learn, it's to grow, it's to develop. Now, when you have a coach like Kevin O'Connell, a coordinator like Wes Phillips, you're going to obviously have some advantages. You're going to fast track a little bit in some of that development, but it's so important to strike that balance of competition and going and trying to win football games and being this modern and very explosive scheme that they've had, while also not skipping any steps for that young quarterback. And I think striking that balance has been a fascinating study, not just this year, but last year too, trying to balance. We're winning a lot of football games, you know, if you're the Vikings, and then you're also developing a young quarterback at the same time behind the scenes. So it's so interesting to me, this sort of 2-year process, and now first year really on the field. It's been interesting, and you can kind of see him growing in confidence as time passes, which I think is important too for a young guy.
Why do you think Kevin O'Connell is able to strike that balance?
I think he understands quarterbacks. I mean, obviously from his own experience, I have always had this theory about him from watching him work with veterans and young players who are struggling and need to revive their career, or players who are on maybe the back 5 years of their career and want to go push to the next level for the first time. It's like he wants to be who he didn't have as a coach. And he had some great coaches, but he wants to that extra step forward, that level of education combined with understanding of the player, as a person, how you can get the most out of that person without making them feel as if they exist to have the most gotten out of them, if that makes sense. A very non-transactional relationship. How you can grow somebody while building their confidence without being unrealistic with them, while being brutal on them sometimes, being tough on them, but also with the expectation that that's functional and that's necessary for growth. I think that he's always tried to be that person for the quarterbacks he's worked with specifically. And it just so happens that he can call a really good offense and build a really good culture. So yeah, that's why he's a head coach. Right. But I think that element of it, we're starting to understand more about the position than I think we used to, in terms of all the little nuances of it. And Kevin is really at the forefront of sort of preaching that.
That's insane. So interesting that you say that, and I think another thing, we all know he likes to throw the ball, right? But he has really tried to. We are that league now, but he's also trying to build it off of a better run game. He talks about an improved run game over and over again. When you look at the pieces the Vikings have added this offseason, how much did that reflect that commitment?
I mean, sneaking Jordan Mason out of San Francisco in the dead of night has got to be one of the most objectively funny things in terms of like, how did everyone just let that happen? Because I think he's a perfect fit for this system. Kevin has talked about wanting to run the ball, and it just hasn't quite, in the years past, hasn't quite gotten to the level that is required to really make his offense sing the way that he wants it to, despite the impressive statistics in the pass game and the, not league low stats in the run game, but certainly you want to lift that floor a little bit. And I think not only with the personnel additions, but also really committing to it, really committing to that physicality, really committing to trying to move people at the line of scrimmage, identifying that as a resource that was needed as well. And then finding a running back who just fits. He just fits here. He just works. And I think that that's going to be really interesting to watch that come to life. And it has to. That's the best thing J.J. McCarthy could have, is a stable run game.
Yes, definitely. And obviously we'll conversely talk about the defensive side of things. Brian Flores back at the helm, that consistency in the building for a lot of those guys. And to think that Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel is their first year in this scheme. Obviously, Van Ginkel with a little bit more experience from Miami. And now they're all going into year 2. You got Dallas Turner, the additions in the front, in the interior defensive line. What are the expectations for this group? Can they take a step forward?
It's so interesting that they already came in so high, right, and now they're like preparing to exit the atmosphere right now. I mean, this defense, the first day that I was here watching practice, I took an all-22 look behind the defensive field, and I just charted the entire thing. I watched position movements and drew arrows where all the players were moving and rotating, and all of these pre-snap and post-snap looks that they show, and it is terrifying. I'll just say that objectively. But it is so much fun. It's a beautiful thing to watch how alive this defense is. It has like a heartbeat collectively, and that's something that's so important. And we talk about analytics, we talk about stats, we talk about all these things, technique and scheme and all this, but having a defense that is its own shared heartbeat, that play, as players like to say, play on a line together, where you have so much of this nonverbal communication that's necessary to actually make this defense come to life. Veteran players and players who are such finds, homegrown finds. I think of Josh Metellus, who is just the perfect do-it-all player for this defense, and was just sort of biding his time and waiting for his opportunity within the same roster. And it's a beautiful thing when you have a mix of players who believe in what they're doing. And oh, by the way, it is terrifying watching these guys come off the line of scrimmage. Yeah. I mean, the pass rush was already good. I mean, okay, let's just add more people. How about that? So they just keep letting him do it,
Yes, they do. So I guess with that being said, what are your expectations for this Minnesota Vikings team? What can they accomplish this year?
Yeah, I think that because the nature of a young quarterback who's developing, you're going to see the defense have to lead the way, I think, right away. In these early months, you're going to have to see them tone set, and you want that. If you're this culture that they've built together under Kevin and Brian Flores as a collaboration, you want to be able to lean on that group as the ones who are going to tone set your start out of the gate. And as you get settled, as you're the young quarterback, and as you understand what it is like to play in real NFL games that count for something over the course of time, and you settle into your habits and you settle into your workflow, that's when I think you're going to start to see the wind come into the sails of the offense a little bit. I don't think that they will be bad out of the gate. I think that their floor is very, very high, certainly on both sides of the ball, but this offense, even with the unknown at quarterback, still extremely high floor for them. But you are going to see, I think, a J.J. McCarthy who's going to start feeling more confident, who's going to start to have a little bit of that gamer come out of him as time passes, because that's what the culture is here. And I think that's important, to be patient if you're a fan with reasonable expectation. This is still going to be a very good offense right away. But to understand that once the collective comes together, once the offense and the defense meet each other during that time of year, this is going to be one of the best teams in football. I have no doubt about that.
Well, thank you so much. Love the optimism, and thanks for coming to visit us here. We really enjoyed it. You can look for more of her work at theathletic.com. Jourdan Rodrigue, thank you again.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.